The conversation was flawless until it became impossible. Welcome to Wolfe Files. I am your host, Oliver Vane. Let me know where you're listening from. I read every comment. Let's continue. After lunch, Wolfe went upstairs for his customary period with the orchids, and I stayed below with the list Clara Vane had left, a pad, and the feeling that the room had not quite settled after her departure. Some clients bring agitation with them and take it away again. Others leave a residue, as if the furniture itself has heard something discreditable about human nature and is still considering it. This was the second kind. I started with the easy work, which is often the only honest beginning. Laverick and Lowe had offices on Madison. Edwin Stannard's home number was on East 64th Street and his foundation office downtown. And Felix Ormond had a Park Avenue address and an office in a limestone building whose tenants generally charged more by the hour than I earned in a day. Lydia Stannard, as Clara had indicated by giving no official title, had only the home address. Miri Fenn, the typist, lived on West End Avenue. Julian Kelm maintained both an apartment on Sutton Place and an office line separate from Vale's arrangements office, which was one small warning bell by itself. Men who handle other men's schedules for a living but make sure they can't always be reached through those men are rarely saints. I was on the phone with the switchboard at Laverick and Lowe when Saul Panzer arrived. Saul never entered a room the way ordinary citizens do. He appeared in it modestly, giving the impression that if he had been there for 10 minutes already, it would have been tactless to mention it. He was medium in everything except efficiency. He called? Saul asked. He did. Why? Because somebody may have engineered a public conversion by laying conversational track in front of an economist and then changing a lecture. Saul blinked once. That all? You want me to invent embroidery? He took the chair near my desk. I gave him the essentials. Saul listened the way good mechanics examine an engine noise, with no eagerness, no boredom, only attention to what might matter later. When I finished, he nodded. Who first? Kelm, I said. Maybe Stannard. Maybe both. Wolfe will allocate the misery when he comes down. Saul glanced toward the ceiling, meaning the plant rooms. He's interested? He called you before coffee. That interested. I'd just gotten through to a woman at Laverick and Lowe, who sounded as if her soul had been misfiled alphabetically when the front bell rang. I went and found a messenger with an envelope. It was addressed to Nero Wolfe, personal, in a neat masculine hand that looked educated and self-satisfied. No return name. I brought it back to the office, slit it, and read the single sheet inside before conscience could catch me. One advantage of working for Nero Wolfe is that he doesn't waste time on propriety if information is involved, so I seldom have to feel guilty more than 2 seconds. The note read, Mr. Wolfe, if Miss Clara Vane has troubled you with melodrama regarding Dr. Adrian Vale, I advise caution. She's intelligent, energetic, and injured, and that combination often mistakes grievance for evidence. If you care to avoid a vulgar misunderstanding, I should be pleased to call. Julian Kelm. No number. Of course not. Men like Julian Kelm assume the world already knows how to reach them. Saul held out his hand. I passed the note over. He read it and said, Fast. Yes. Which means one of two things. Either Clara went straight to him after leaving here, or somebody saw her come in. Or he had us watched already. That too. Saul folded the note once and set it on my desk. He wants to define her first. Exactly. Injured is a nice touch. Elegant mud. We heard Wolfe overhead, moving toward the stairs. I handed the note to Saul again so he could deliver it when asked, which saved repetition. Wolfe entered, looked from one of us to the other, and settled into his chair. Well, he said. Message from Kelm, I told him. He warns you against Miss Vane's melodrama, says she's intelligent, energetic, and injured, and offers to prevent a vulgar misunderstanding. Wolfe extended a hand. Saul gave him the note. Wolfe read it and snorted. "Injured," he said. "A man who labels a woman's possible grievance before he knows what she has said is either prudent or guilty." "Or both," I offered. "Commonly." He turned to Saul. "You will ascertain at once whether Miss Vane was followed from this house, whether anyone has been observing the stoop, and whether Mr. Kellam knew of her visit before posting this little bouquet." Saul nodded. "Today." Wolfe looked at him. "No, next Easter." Saul left without resenting it, being both wise and employed. Wolfe then turned to me. "Archie, get Dr. D. Vale." I dialed the residence number first. A woman answered, middle-aged and careful. Yes, Dr. Vale was out. No, she did not know precisely where. Yes, she expected him back before dinner. No, she could not undertake to relay a message beyond the statement that Mr. Nero Wolfe had called. When I added that it concerned Thursday's lecture, there was a fractional pause before she repeated that she would relay the message. That pause went in my pocket. Next, I tried Vale's office. No luck. Then Kellam's line. No answer there either. Then the Tarrant Foundation, asking for Stannard. I got a secretary who told me Mr. Stannard was in conference. The tone was the kind secretaries use when conference means either conference or golf or anything else they prefer not to define for strangers. Wolfe sat with his eyes half shut while I worked, and which to the untrained observer might have suggested drowsiness. It wasn't. He was arranging a board in his head and deciding which pieces objected most to being moved. When I finished reporting the unhelpful results, he asked, "Miss Fenn? The typist? I haven't rung her yet." "Do so." I called the number on West End Avenue. A young woman answered on the fourth ring, brisk and suspicious. Yes, this was Mary Fenn. No, she had never heard of me. Yes, I was aware that was often a reason to hang up. No, I wasn't selling anything, collecting anything, or inviting her to support the arts. At that, she gave a short laugh despite herself. When I mentioned Adrian Vale, there was another little pause. Not long enough to be fear, but long enough to be calculation. "I do occasional work," she said. "On the Tarrant lecture?" "I can't discuss clients." "Then discuss lunch. Are you free for it tomorrow?" "No." "Dinner?" "No. You're either careful or popular." "I'm working." "Today?" "Yes." "On what?" Silence. I said, "Miss Fenn, someone delivered an anonymous note this morning concerning a page from Dr. Vale's lecture. If you don't want your name dragged through a mess you didn't create, meeting me is cheaper than explaining later why you wouldn't." That was a bluff, but only partly. Silence again, and then 5:30, the cafe in the lobby of the Benzinger building, Lexington and 46th, 15 minutes only. "Done?" I hung up and turned. Wolfe had not moved, but one eye opened another notch. "She accepted," I said, "which means either she's innocent enough to be scared, guilty enough to manage me, or both." The bell rang again. This time it wasn't a messenger. It was Inspector Kramer. He came in without waiting to be invited, as was his habit and our misfortune, broad and red-faced and carrying bad temper the way some men carry umbrellas. He gave me one look, Wolfe another, and said, "What's this I hear about you sniffing around Adrian Vale before anybody's filed a complaint?" I stared at him. Wolfe didn't even blink. Kramer planted himself in the red leather chair Clara Vane had used that morning, as if the day had decided to begin again with a less decorative caller. Wolfe said, very mildly, "Good afternoon, Inspector. Since you have already heard something, perhaps you will now perform the courtesy of telling us from whom." Kramer's eyes shifted from Wolfe to me and back again, and as if deciding which of us he would blame first and why. That's one of his small habits. He doesn't like walking into a room where information has already taken a chair before he has. "Don't get fancy with me, Wolfe," he said. "You've had a visit this morning from a woman connected with Vale. Within an hour, Kelm calls a friend downtown who calls a man I know, and by the time I finished my coffee, I hear that you're looking into a lecture. I don't like cases that start as whispers." "Then you must be perpetually uncomfortable," I said. "Most things worth hearing begin that way." He ignored me, which is one of the reasons we get along. Wolfe steepled his fingers. "Inspector, you have not answered my question." Kramer's jaw tightened. "Julian Kelm." That landed exactly where Wolfe had expected it to. "He telephoned you?" Wolfe asked. "No. He telephoned a lawyer who telephoned a deputy commissioner who telephoned me. He's concerned about interference in a matter that doesn't involve you." Wolfe's lips moved slightly. Concerned men often mistake jurisdiction for immunity. "Don't feed me that," Kramer snapped. "Is there a crime?" "Not yet." "Then what are you doing?" "Thinking." "That's not illegal. I put in helpfully." Kramer swung his head toward me. "If it were, you'd be in Sing Sing." "On visiting days." Wolfe lifted a hand a fraction, which meant he was willing to tolerate the inspector for at least another minute. "Mr. Kelm's anxiety is premature. No one has accused him of anything. A woman has expressed concern that a public document may not represent its author's intent." "That's not a crime," Kramer said. "True. Nor is misdirection, suggestion, or the cultivation of false impressions. They are merely tedious." "Then stay out of it." Wolfe's eyes opened a degree wider. "No." Kramer leaned forward. "Listen to me. Adrian Vale's name carries weight. If something's wrong with him, if he's slipping, there are people who will handle it. Quietly. Respectably. You poking at it turns it into a circus." "Inspector," Wolfe said, "if something is wrong with Dr. Vale, I have no interest in exposing it. Something is wrong with the circumstances under which he is being represented. I have every interest." Kramer stared at him, weighing whether that distinction was real or decorative. Finally he grunted. "You always have an interest." "Not always. Frequently." Kramer stood up. "If this turns into a complaint, it's mine. If it turns into a mess, oh, I'll remember who stirred it." "I would expect nothing less," Wolfe said. Kramer gave me a last look that promised inconvenience and left. I shut the door behind him and came back to the office. Wolfe hadn't moved. "Well," I said, "that didn't take long. Kellam's already trying to get the police to sit on us." "Not to sit," Wolfe said. "To stand nearby and frown. Same effect if you're trying to move." I picked up the list again. "Where do you want me first?" "Miss Fenn at 5:30. Before that, Mr. Stannard. I will speak with him." "On the telephone?" "No. Invite him here." I raised an eyebrow. "He's a foundation chairman, not a plumber." "Invite him," Wolfe repeated. "Say that if he prefers to avoid inconvenience, he will attend at 4 o'clock. "That's not an invitation," I said. "Oh, that's a polite ambush." "Yes." I dialed the Tarrant Foundation again. This time I got a different secretary, which meant either the first had gone to lunch or they rotated them to confuse callers. I asked for Mr. Stannard and was told he was still in conference. I said Mr. Nero Wolfe requested his presence at 4 o'clock regarding Dr. Vale's lecture and would consider absence inconvenient. There was a pause, long enough to suggest the message would not be treated lightly. Then I was asked to hold. After a minute, a man came on the line. His voice was smooth, trained, and slightly impatient with the world. "Stannard. Archie Goodwin, Mr. Nero Wolfe's office. I've just conveyed—" "Yes," he said. "I heard. Mr. Wolfe wishes to see me at 4. "He does." "On what grounds?" "On the grounds that it will save time later." A breath. That is not an answer. "It's the one I've got." Another breath. This one's shorter. "Very well. 4 o'clock. He hung up. I turned. "He's coming." Of course, Wolfe said. Why of course? Because he cannot afford not to know what I know. Which is little. But he does not know that. I grinned. Sometimes I think you enjoy that part most. I enjoy efficiency, he said. Ignorance is often efficient. I checked the clock. Just past 2. Plenty of time for one more errand before the afternoon started to crowd itself. I can swing by Vale's place, I said. See if he's back early or if his housekeeper's version of the day improves on second telling. Do so, Wolfe said. Observe. Do not interrogate. That takes half the fun out of it. Then suffer. I got my hat and went out. Vale's residence was on a quiet street with good trees and better real estate. The house itself had the look of money that preferred understatement, brick, polished brass, curtains that suggested taste rather than display. I rang. The same woman answered the door. Yes, she said. Archie Goodwin. I telephoned earlier. I remember. Any change in Dr. Vale's schedule? No. Expected soon? I could not say. Anyone else in? No. She was good, not friendly, not hostile, just closed in a way that left no handle. I shifted slightly, letting my eyes take in the hall behind her. Orderly. Too orderly. No papers in sight, no hat on a table, no sign of a man who had left in a hurry. Busy day? I asked. We manage, she said. Anyone come by this morning? No. That was almost certainly false. If Kelm was managing access, then he'd either been there or had someone who had. But she delivered it cleanly. I smiled. If Dr. Vale returns, tell him Nero Wolfe called. I will. I tipped my hat and left. On the way back, I considered the angles. Kelm was moving fast, which meant he was either confident or frightened. Stannard was coming to see Wolfe, which meant he preferred information to guessing. Clara Vane had taken a risk by coming to us, which meant she believed the window was small. And somewhere in all that, a typed page and a too perfect conversation were doing work they shouldn't have been able to do. When I got back to the brownstone, Saul was already there, standing near my desk as if he had never left. Well, I said. He shrugged slightly. Miss Vane was not followed from here. No one on the block watching. Kelm knew she came before she left. I frowned. So how? Telephone from inside. From where? He looked at me. Your office. I stared at him. That's impossible, I said. Nothing is, Saul said. A call was made from this number 10 minutes after she arrived. Short, to Kelm's private line. I turned slowly toward Wolfe. He was sitting exactly as before, eyes half closed, but there was nothing restful about him now. Archie, he said, we have been trespassed upon. That did it. The residue Clara Vane had left behind hardened into something else entirely. Not agitation, violation. And if there is one thing Nero Wolfe takes personally, it is the idea that someone has used his own house to arrange a conversation. I looked at Saul, then at the telephone on my desk, then back at Wolfe. You're telling me, I said carefully, that while I was sitting 10 feet away, someone used this line to tip Kelm that Clara Vane was here. Yes, Saul said. That narrows it down nicely, I said. To me, you, Wolfe, Fritz, Theodore, and the possibility that the telephone has developed initiative. Saul shook his head. Timestamp is precise. 10 minutes after she arrived. You were at your desk, Wolfe upstairs, Fritz in the kitchen, Theodore in the plant rooms. Which leaves, you answered the door, Saul said. I stared at him. You think she... I think a call was made, Saul said. I don't think anything else. Wolfe opened his eyes fully. Archie, reconstruct. I took a breath. Bell rings. I go to the door. She's there. We exchange names. I bring her in. We go straight to the office. She sits. I go back to my desk. I don't leave the room again until you come down. Wolfe nodded. And the telephone? In plain sight, on my desk, within arm's reach of her chair. No, but close enough if I'd been turned. Were you turned? Once or twice. To my desk. To get up. To look at her. Wolfe's gaze sharpened. Did she move? I ran it back. Her entrance. The gloves. The way she sat. The waiting. The silence. No, I said. Or if she did, it was small enough I didn't clock it. Saul said, call duration under 15 seconds. That's not a conversation, I said. That's a signal. Precisely, Wolfe said. A statement. I'm here. Or proceed. I felt something tighten in my chest that had nothing to do with logic. You're saying she used us, used this office as a relay. I'm saying it is possible, Wolfe said. Possible, I repeated. Sure. Also possible that I sprouted wings and didn't notice. Wolfe's eyes rested on me. Your vanity is excessive. If you had sprouted wings, you would certainly have noticed. Thank you, I said. That helps. Saul spoke quietly. There's another angle. Good, I said. I'm running short. Call could have been made before she sat down, when you opened the door. I shook my head. The phone is inside. Not in the hall. She never got near it without me. Saul nodded once. Then we're back to inside. Silence settled. Not the earlier kind Clara Vane had brought, but something denser, more practical. The brownstone had rules. Violating them wasn't just bad manners, it was a declaration. Wolfe said, Archie, enumerate who knew Miss Vane was coming. She didn't make an appointment. No one knew. Except Mr. Kellum, Wolfe said. I let that sit. All right, I said slowly. Let's say Kellum knew she intended to come here. He posts a watch on the block. Saul says no watch. Correct, Saul said. Then Kellum had to know she arrived without eyes on the street, which leaves two possibilities. She told him she would come, or someone inside told him when she did. Wolfe inclined his head. And you reject the former? I don't reject it, I said. I don't like it. Preference is irrelevant, Wolfe said. Examine it. I leaned against my desk. If she told him she was coming, why come at all? Why tip him and then ask us to help her against him? To measure, Wolfe said. To measure what? Whether we would take the matter. How quickly? On what terms? I frowned. That's a long way round for a simple answer. Nothing in this is simple, Wolfe said. Or you have said so yourself. Saul added, or she wanted him to know she had come. I looked at him. Why? So he would move, Saul said. That landed. I straightened. You mean she's flushing him, forces him to react, tighten control, make a mistake? Possibly, Saul said. Wolfe closed his eyes again briefly, then opened them. Miss Vane is not a fool. She's also not omniscient. If she has set a trap, she does not know precisely where it will close. And we're standing in the middle of it, I said. Perhaps. I pushed off the desk. I don't like perhaps when it involves our telephone. Nor do I, Wolfe said, which is why we will remove it. Remove? For the moment, he said. Unplug it. Use the extension in the hall for outgoing calls only. Under your eye. I went over, pulled the cord, and set the instrument aside. It felt like disarming something. Better, I asked. Less offensive, Wolfe said. I checked the clock. 4:15. Stannard in 15 minutes, I said. And Fenn at 5:30. Yes. And somewhere in between we decide whether Clara Vane is our client, our collaborator, or our problem. Wolfe looked at me. All clients are problems. Some are also collaborators. A few are enemies. And which is she? I do not yet know. The bell rang. I went to the door and opened it to a man who looked exactly like a foundation chairman should. Late 50s, well-fed without being soft, hair disciplined into submission, suit that had never met a discount. Edwin Stannard's eyes were cool and assessing, and he carried his authority like a credential he expected to be checked and honored. "Mr. Goodwin," he said, "that's the rumor. Now come in." He stepped inside, took in the hall in a single sweep, and gave a small nod that might have meant approval or simply acknowledgement that the place existed. I led him to the office. Wolfe did not rise. He rarely does. Stannard took the red leather chair without being asked, which I noted. Men who assume chairs often assume conclusions. "Mr. Wolfe," he said, "I understand you have taken an interest in a matter connected with Dr. Vale." "I've taken an interest in a potential irregularity," Wolfe said. "The connection to Dr. Vale is incidental." "That is not how it appears," Stannard said. "Appearances are frequently inaccurate," Wolfe said. Stannard glanced at me, then back at Wolfe. "Then let me be plain. Dr. Vale is under considerable pressure at present. His lecture is important. There are sensitivities, so introducing speculation at this stage could be damaging." "Speculation is not my métier," Wolfe said. "Information is. Then you will understand why I prefer that information remain within appropriate channels." "Define appropriate." "Those directly responsible for Dr. Vale's work. Myself, Mr. Kelm, and, where necessary, legal counsel." "Miss Vane is not included?" Stannard's expression did not change, but something behind it did. "Miss Vane is no longer assigned to the lecture." "I am aware," Wolfe said. "Why?" "A difference of professional judgment." "Regarding what?" "The handling of certain materials." "Be precise," Wolfe said. Stannard's eyes hardened a fraction. "Mr. Wolfe, I did not come here to be interrogated." "No," Wolfe said. "You came to discover what I know and to discourage me from learning more." For a second, I thought Stannard might stand up and leave. Then he did something more interesting. He smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. It was the kind a man uses when he decides to engage rather than retreat. "Very well," he said. "Let's dispense with courtesy. What do you think is happening?" Wolfe leaned back, fingers interlaced. "I think," he said, "that a conversation was arranged with such care that it ceased to be a conversation and became an instrument." Stannard's smile held. "And you believe that instrument was used on Dr. Vale?" "I believe it is possible." "And that his lecture has been altered as a result? Or independently?" Stannard's eyes flickered just once. "Independently?" "Yes. How?" Wolfe's gaze was steady. "That is what I intend to discover." The room tightened. Stannard leaned forward slightly. "Let me save you time, Mr. Wolfe. There has been no alteration beyond Dr. Vale's own revisions. He is a serious man. He is capable of changing his mind." "Indeed," Wolfe said. "And yet someone found it necessary to send Miss Vane a page marked with the assertion that he did so." Stannard's smile thinned. "I don't know anything about that." "I did not say you did." Silence again. This time it was edged. Stannard rose. "If you proceed, you will find that the people involved in this matter are not accustomed to being handled." Wolfe inclined his head. "Nor am I." Stannard looked at him for a long moment, then turned and left. I followed him to the door, watched him go down the stoop, and came back. "Well?" I said. Wolfe's eyes were closed again, but the line of his mouth had changed. "Well," he said, "we have been warned." "By both sides," I said. "Yes." I glanced at the dead telephone on my desk. "And someone is using our house as part of the arrangement." I checked the clock again. 4:10. "Next move?" I asked. Wolfe opened his eyes. "Miss Fenn," he said, "and Archie. Observe everything, especially what appears to fit too well." I picked up my hat. "Don't worry," I said. "After today, I'm suspicious of anything that makes sense." The Benzinger Building lobby cafe was one of those places designed to make people feel they were conducting business, even when they were only postponing it. Chrome, glass, and chairs that discouraged long reflection. I got there 10 minutes early, took a table with a view of both the entrance and the elevators, and ordered coffee I didn't intend to drink. At 5:28 she came in. Mary Fenn was younger than I'd expected. Mid-20s, maybe. Dark hair cut efficiently, eyes that had learned to move quickly over paper and slower over people. She spotted me at once, which meant she had been given a description or had asked for one. Either way, she was prepared. "You're Mr. Goodwin," she said, sliding into the chair opposite without ceremony. "I've been called worse. I have 15 minutes. I admire discipline. Use it. No preliminaries. I like that, even if it made my job harder." "You typed Dr. Vale's lecture," I said. "I typed drafts," she corrected. "Several versions." "Final version?" "Yes." "When?" "Yesterday morning." "From dictation? Manuscript?" "Typed pages with handwritten corrections." "Whose handwriting?" "Doctor. Miss Vale's." I watched her eyes. They didn't shift. Either she was telling the truth or she had practiced telling it. "Anyone else's marks on the pages?" I asked. "No." "No blue pencil? No marginal notes from Mr. Kelm?" "No." "No substitution slipped in after you typed it?" "No." "That's a lot of no," I said. "It's accurate." I leaned back. "Miss Fenn, this morning an anonymous page from an earlier draft was delivered to Miss Vane, marked with a line that doesn't appear in the final version and a note claiming Dr. Vale made the change himself." "I don't know anything about that." "Would you like to?" She hesitated just long enough to show she was considering the cost. "What do you want from me?" "Clarity. You saw the drafts. You typed them. You'd notice if something changed in tone, structure, conclusion." Her lips pressed together briefly. He revised. "Substantively?" "Yes." "In what direction?" She looked at me steadily. "Toward a more practical conclusion." That's a polite way of saying he reversed himself. "I didn't say that. You didn't have to." She glanced at the clock on the wall, then back at me. "He was tired," she said. "More than usual. He dictated some sections, then crossed them out, then dictated alternatives. At one point he asked me to retype a page 3 times because he couldn't decide which phrasing he preferred." "That's not unusual for a careful man," I said. "No," she agreed. "But the alternatives were not variations. They were different positions." That was something. "And Mr. Kelm?" I asked. "Was he present?" "Yes, part of the time." "Did he contribute?" She shook her head. "He doesn't dictate. He suggests." "How?" "Questions. Would it be fair to say, or have you considered, or given current conditions, might it not follow?" I smiled faintly. "He arranges conversations." She didn't return the smile. "He's good at it." "Too good." She didn't answer that. "Did he ever touch the pages?" I asked. "Not while I was there. After. I left when I finished the typing." "Who had the pages then?" "Dr. Vale and Mr. Kelm." "Anyone else?" "I don't know." I let a second pass. "Miss Fenn, when you left, what did you think of the lecture?" Her gaze shifted, not away, but inward. "I thought it would surprise people." "Pleasantly?" "No." "Did you tell anyone that?" "No." "Did you tell Miss Vane?" "No." "Did you tell Mr. Kelm?" "No." "Then why meet me?" She exhaled. "Because when you called, so you sounded as if you already knew something was wrong." "I know something may be wrong," I said. "That's not the same." She nodded once. "Then here's what I can tell you. The last page I typed, the conclusion, was dictated in a single pass. No hesitation. No alternatives, as if it had already been decided." "By whom?" She met my eyes. "That's your job." "Did it sound like him?" She hesitated again. Yes and no. That's helpful. It's honest. I prefer helpful, I said. But I'll take honest. She checked her watch. Time. One more, I said. Yesterday morning, before or after you finished, did anyone make a telephone call from the room? Her eyes sharpened. Why? Because someone made one from my office this morning when Miss Vane was there. That landed. She didn't flinch, but the stillness changed. No, she said slowly. No call while I was there. After. I left. Did you see Dr. Vale use the telephone at all? No. Did Mr. Kelm? No. Anyone else in the room? No. She stood. That's all. Miss Fenn, I said. She paused. If you think of anything that doesn't fit, even if it looks small, call me. She nodded and left without looking back. I finished the coffee I hadn't intended to drink and headed for the door, turning over what she had given me. A conclusion dictated in one pass after a series of conflicting revisions that either meant clarity had been achieved or imposed. Back at the brownstone, Wolfe was at his desk, eyes open this time, which meant he was not merely thinking, but expecting. Well, he said. I gave it to him, straight through. Fenn's account, the dictation, Kelm's method of suggestion, the absence of visible tampering, the final page delivered whole. When I finished, Wolfe grunted. And the call? She says none while she was there. After, she left. I moved to the desk and tapped the dead telephone with a finger. Whoever made that call here did it clean. Short, precise, and right under my nose. Yes. And either Clara Vane did it, or someone in this house did, or we're missing something obvious. Obvious is often concealed by assumption, Wolfe said. What do you assume? That no one in this house would use our phone to tip an outsider. Why? Because it would be stupid. Stupidity is common, Wolfe said. But let us be charitable. Suppose Miss Vane did it. I felt that tightening again. Then everything she told us is suspect. Not everything, Wolfe said. Only her independence. You think she's working with Kelm? I think it is possible she is working against him in a manner that requires him to be informed of certain steps. That's a neat trick. Yes. And dangerous. Very. I paced once across the room and back. There's something else. Fenn said the conclusion was dictated in one pass. No hesitation, as if it had already been decided. By whom? Wolfe asked. That's what I asked her. And? She left it to us. Wolfe leaned back, fingers together. If Dr. Vale arrived at the conclusion independently after the dinner, we have one problem. If the conclusion was prepared for him, and he was guided to it, we have another. And if the text was altered after he approved it, then we have a third. I stopped pacing. You're enjoying this. I am offended, Wolfe said. Enjoyment is incidental. The bell rang again. I went to the door with less enthusiasm than before. When I opened it, Clara Vane stood there, gloves on, eyes sharper than in the morning. Mr. Goodwin, she said, I need to speak to Mr. Wolfe. You had your turn, I said. It's a popular office. This won't wait. I studied her a second, then stepped aside. Come in. She went straight to the office without being shown this time, which told me she had decided something between noon and now. Wolfe looked at her without greeting. Miss Vane. She didn't sit. They've moved the time, she said. Of what? Wolfe asked. The lecture, she said. It's no longer Thursday evening. It's tomorrow morning. That shifted the air in the room like a door opening where no door should be. Wolfe's eyes sharpened. Why? Officially, scheduling convenience. Unofficially, she met his gaze. Because whatever is going to happen, they want it done before anyone can stop it. I felt the timeline snap tight. Tomorrow morning. No more, perhaps. For a second, no one spoke. The shift Clara Vane had brought with her wasn't merely urgency, it was compression. Everything that had been arranged to unfold over 2 days had been forced into one night. Wolfe said, "At what hour?" 10, she said. "Private session first. Trustees, selected guests, and press admitted immediately after." "Location?" "The Tarrant Foundation Auditorium." "Who authorized the change?" "Mr. Stannard," she said, with Mr. Kelm's support. "Of course," Wolfe murmured. I moved closer. "When did you learn this?" 30 minutes ago. And I was told I would not be required in any capacity." "That's generous of them," I said. She ignored that. Her attention was fixed on Wolfe. "If the lecture is delivered tomorrow morning, whatever is in that final draft becomes fact. It will be quoted, printed, circulated before noon. There will be no time to challenge it without appearing defensive or confused." "Yes," Wolfe said. "Speed is an ally of falsehood when it is dressed as certainty." She took a step forward. "Can you stop it?" Wolfe looked at her for a long moment. "I can attempt to intervene." "That's not the same." "No," he said. "It is not." I said, "Let's be practical. We've got—" I checked my watch. 16 hours, give or take. We need to know 3 things. 1, what's in the final text exactly? 2, whether Vale stands behind it. 3, who benefits if he doesn't? "Add a 4th, Wolfe said. "How the conditions were arranged to make the first 2 ambiguous." Clara Vane nodded. "Yes." I turned to her. "Where is the final text now?" "With Dr. Vale and Mr. Kelm." "Not at the foundation?" "It may be. I don't know." "That's not good enough," I said. "We need to see it." "You will," Wolfe said. I glanced at him. "How?" He turned to me. "Archie, telephone Mr. Kelm." I looked at the unplugged instrument, then at him. "Use the hall extension," he said. I went out, lifted the receiver, and dialed the number from the list. It rang 3 times. "Kelm," a voice said. "Archie Goodwin, Nero Wolfe's office." A pause. Not long, but measured. "Yes, Mr. Goodwin." "Mr. as Wolfe would like to see you." "I don't believe that would be useful." "He believes it would." "I'm occupied." "He's accustomed to that." Another pause. "What is the purpose of this meeting?" "To avoid a vulgar misunderstanding." Silence. Then, quietly, "You've spoken with Miss Vane again." "She's in the room." "I see. You could save yourself time by joining her." "And if I decline?" "Then Mr. Wolfe will proceed without the benefit of your explanation." A longer silence this time. I could almost hear him weighing not whether to come, but what posture to bring with him. "What hour?" he said at last. "Now." "No." "Then when?" 7. I considered. That gave him time to prepare something or someone. 6, I said. 6:30. Done. I hung up and went back in. "He'll be here at 6:30, I said. Wolfe nodded once. "Do good." Clara Vane's eyes moved between us. "And in the meantime?" "In the meantime," Wolfe said, "we shall arrange the board." He turned to me. "Archie, Saul." I went back to the hall and made the call. Saul answered on the second ring. "Panzer." "Get back here," I said. "And bring Fred Durkin if you can find him. We're compressing." "On my way." I returned. Wolfe said, "Miss Vane, you will remain." She blinked. "Here." "Yes. That may not be wise." "Why?" "Because if Mr. Kelm sees me here, he will," Wolfe said. "That is desirable." She studied him. "You intend to confront him with me present." "I intend to observe him with you present." "That's not the same." "No," Wolfe said. "It is more informative." She hesitated, then nodded. "Very well." I leaned against my desk. "While we're arranging the board, There's still the small matter of our telephone being used as a signal. Wolfe's gaze shifted to Clara Vane. "Miss Vane," he said, "did you use the telephone in this room this morning?" She met his eyes without flinching. "No." "Did you signal Mr. Kelm in any manner that you were coming here?" "No." "Did you inform him in advance that you intended to consult me?" "No." Wolfe held her gaze a moment longer, then inclined his head slightly, as if placing her answer on a shelf labeled provisional. "I said, Saul checked the timing. The call was made 10 minutes after you arrived." She turned to me. "I didn't make it." "I believe you," I said. "At least until I don't." "That's fair." "Which leaves us with a problem," I said. "Because I didn't make it. Wolfe didn't. Fritz didn't. Theodore didn't. And Saul says there was no one outside watching." Clara Vane's brow furrowed. "Then who?" Wolfe raised a hand. "Let us not indulge in the impossible until we have exhausted the improbable." "Such as?" I asked. "Such as error in timing," Wolfe said. "Or error in attribution." Saul entered then, with Fred Durkin a step behind him. Fred looked as if he had been pulled out of a perfectly good piece of work and was trying not to resent it. "What's up?" Fred asked. "Everything," I said, "and we've got until 10 tomorrow to sort it." Wolfe gestured them in. "Gentlemen, attend." He summarized in a way only Wolfe can, stripping the story to its skeleton without losing its shape. By the time he finished, Fred's expression had shifted from mild annoyance to professional interest. "So what do you want?" Fred asked. "Observation," Wolfe said. "Saul, you will remain with Mr. Goodwin. Mr. Durkin, you will go at once to the Tarrant Foundation and determine who has access to the auditorium tonight, who controls entry, and whether any copies of the lecture are on the premises." Fred nodded. "Got it." "Discreetly," Wolfe added. "Always," Fred said, and left. Wolfe turned back to Saul. "You will verify again the origin of the call from this house. I want certainty, not probability." Saul nodded. "I'll check with the exchange." "Also," Wolfe said, "ascertain Mr. Kelm's movement since noon, who he has seen, who he has spoken to, and whether he has visited Dr. Vale." "Right." Saul moved to the phone in the hall. That left the three of us in the office. Wolfe, Clara Vane, and me. The light had shifted outside. Evening was beginning to press against the windows, not yet dark, but no longer neutral. The kind of light that makes decisions feel more permanent. Clara Vane stood where she had been, hands clasped now, the composure still there but tightened. "You think he's accelerating because he's afraid," she said. Wolfe regarded her. "I think he is accelerating because delay is no longer his ally." "Because of me," she said. "Because of uncertainty," Wolfe corrected. "You are one element of it." She nodded slowly. "Then we have forced his hand." "Perhaps. And if we're wrong, then we will have forced nothing and revealed our interest." She drew a breath, which may be enough. Wolfe did not answer. I looked at the clock. Just after 5. 6:30, I said. "He walks in here." "Yes," Wolfe said. "Now can we find out whether this whole thing is as carefully arranged as it looks?" Wolfe's eyes settled on the empty space where the telephone had been. "No," he said quietly. "We find out who believes it is." That was better and worse. Because in a case like this, belief was the lever, and someone had already started pulling. The half hour before 6:30 stretched in a way I don't recommend. Not idle, not frantic, just tight. Saul worked the line in the hall, speaking in that quiet, unhurried way of his that suggested nothing urgent was happening while he was arranging something very urgent indeed. Fritz came in once, looked at Clara Vane, looked at Wolfe, and asked if dinner should be held. Wolfe said yes without looking at him, which meant no one would eat properly. At 6:10, Fred Durkin called in. I took it in the hall. "For talk," I said. "Foundations buttoned up," Fred said. "Auditorium locked. 2 guards on rotation, both from a private firm, not regular building security. Access list for tonight is short. Stannard, Kelm, 1 tech man, and a cleaner who's already been through. No sign of the lecture text on site. If it's there, it's in a briefcase or a pocket." "Rehearsal?" "Nothing scheduled. But the podium's set, mics checked, chairs arranged. They're ready." "Anyone interesting come or go?" "Kelm was here about an hour ago, in and out in 20 minutes. "Alone?" "Looked that way." "Thanks," I said. "Stay within range." I hung up and went back in. "Durkin says the foundation is locked down," I reported. "Kelm was there earlier. Quick visit. No visible text left behind." Wolfe nodded. "As expected." Clara Vane spoke for the first time in several minutes. "He's consolidating control." "Or giving the impression of it," Wolfe said. She didn't answer that. At 6:28, Saul came in from the hall. "Exchange confirms the call," he said. "Placed from this line at 11:22, AM duration 11 seconds. Number dialed matches Kelm's private line." "That we knew," I said. "Anything else?" "Operator doesn't recall voice. Too short. No extension used. Direct line." I blew out a breath. "So we're back where we started." "No," Wolfe said. "We are where we must be." The bell rang. I went to the door. Julian Kelm stood on the stoop, hatless, coat unbuttoned, as if he had walked briskly and chosen not to appear hurried. He was in his early 40s, clean-cut, so with the kind of face that photographs well because it has been trained to hold expressions just long enough and no longer. His eyes were alert and pleasant in a way that suggested he enjoyed being underestimated. "Mr. Goodwin," he said. "I trust I'm not early." "You're not late," I said. "Come in." He stepped inside and paused just long enough to take in the hall, the staircase, the proportions of the place. Not admiration, assessment. Then he followed me to the office. When he entered and saw Clara Vane, he did not stop. That was good. A lesser man would have. He inclined his head to her, no more than a fraction. "Clara." "Julian." No warmth, no frost, just acknowledgement. He turned to Wolfe. "Mr. Wolfe." Wolfe gave him the same nod he had given her that morning, minus the curiosity. "Mr. Kelm, I sit." Kelm took the red leather chair without waiting, which made 2 of them today. He crossed one leg over the other and placed his hands lightly on the arms, as if he intended to stay as long as necessary, and not a second more. "I understand there are concerns," he said. "Concerns exist," Wolfe said. "Understanding is in progress." Kelm smiled faintly. "Perhaps I can assist." "That is unlikely," Wolfe said, "but you may try." I leaned against my desk and watched. Kelm's gaze moved briefly to me, then back to Wolfe. "Miss Vane has a tendency to dramatize professional disagreements," he said. "Her removal from the Vale lecture has been difficult for her." Clara Vane did not move. "My removal was procedural," she said. "The difficulty is yours." Kelm's smile didn't change. "You see?" Wolfe lifted a hand. "Mr. Kelm, we will dispense with character sketches. Tell me why the time of the lecture has been advanced." "A scheduling opportunity," Kelm said. "Several key attendees were available earlier than anticipated." "Names?" Kelm hesitated just long enough to show he noticed the demand. "Trustees and donors." "Names," Wolfe repeated. Kelm's eyes hardened a fraction. "Edwin Stannard, Felix Ormond, 2 members of the advisory board." "And Dr. Vale?" Wolfe said. "Of course." "Was he consulted?" "Yes." "Did he agree?" "Yes." "Reluctantly?" Wolfe asked. Kelm's smile thinned. "Dr. Vale is not a reluctant man." Wolfe said. "And the text of the lecture? What of it?" Is it complete? Yes. Final? Yes. Approved by Dr. Vale? Yes. Without reservation? Kellum spread his hands slightly. Mr. Wolfe, I'm not sure what you expect me to say. Doctor, Vale has prepared a lecture. He will deliver it. This is not a conspiracy. Is it not? Wolfe asked. No. Then you will have no objection to our seeing the text. Kellum's eyes flicked once toward Clara Vane, then back. That would be inappropriate. Why? It is not public until delivered. Then you fear premature judgment, Wolfe said. I respect process. Phooey. Process is often a refuge for convenience. Kellum's voice cooled. Mr. Wolfe, with respect, you are inserting yourself into a matter that does not concern you. On the contrary, Wolfe said. It concerns me that a man's published position may not be his own. It is his own. How do you know? I was present, Kellum said. I heard him develop it. At dinner, Wolfe said. Yes. With Mr. Stannard, Mrs. Stannard, Mr. Ormond, Miss Vane, Hyde and yourself. Yes. A remarkable conversation, Wolfe said. So complete that each objection anticipated its answer. Kellum's smile returned, smaller now. Good discussions often have that quality. Do they? Wolfe said. Or do they acquire it when arranged? Kellum leaned forward slightly. Are you suggesting that we staged a discussion to manipulate Dr. Vale? I'm suggesting it is possible, Wolfe said. It is not, Kellum said. Because? Because Dr. Vale is not a man who can be manipulated. Clara Vane spoke then, her voice level. He can be guided when he is tired. Kellum turned to her, and for the first time something real showed. Not anger, irritation. You overestimate your insight, he said. And you underestimate your influence, she replied. Wolfe lifted a hand again. Enough. Mr. Kellum, a page from an earlier draft of the lecture was delivered anonymously to Miss Vane this morning, marked with a sentence not present in the final version, and a note stating that Dr. Vale made the change himself. Explain. Kellum's eyes did not flicker. I can't explain something I know nothing about. You deny sending it? Yes. You deny knowledge of who did? Yes. Do you deny that the sentence was removed? Kellum paused. Drafts change. Was it removed? Yes. Why? Because it no longer reflected Dr. Vale's conclusion. Which changed overnight, Wolfe said. Which evolved, Kellum corrected. Conveniently, Wolfe said. Kellum's gaze sharpened. Mr. Wolfe, you are building a narrative without evidence. On the contrary, Wolfe said, I am dismantling one that is too neat. Kellum sat back. Then let me be clear. Doctor, Vale's lecture is his own work. He has considered various positions and arrived at one he believes is correct. If that position differs from his previous views, that is not a crime. It is intellectual honesty. Or intellectual theft, Wolfe said. Kellum's eyes flashed. That is a serious accusation. It is a possibility, Wolfe said. Silence settled, thicker now. Then Wolfe said, very softly, Mr. Kellum, at 11:22 this morning, a telephone call was placed from this room to your private line. 11 seconds. What was said? Kellum did not move. For a moment I thought he might pretend ignorance. Then he did something better. He smiled. Nothing, he said. No one spoke. The room shifted again. Because that was not a denial. That was an answer, and it fit too well. I straightened from the desk. No one spoke, I repeated. Then what was the point of the call? Kellum's smile didn't widen, but it settled, as if he had chosen his footing. You tell me, Mr. Goodwin. You're the one who seems so certain it matters. It matters because it happened, I said, and because it connects you to this room at the exact moment Miss Vane was here. Kelm turned his head slightly toward Clara Vane. Does it? She met his gaze. It connects you to something you didn't expect. On the contrary, he said, I expect many things, including that you would attempt to involve Mr. Wolfe. That landed a shade off center. Not a denial, not an admission, just a shift. Wolfe's voice cut in, calm and precise. Mr. Kelm, you have said that no one spoke. That suggests you recognize the call. Yes. How? A line rings differently when one is waiting for it. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. You were waiting? Yes. For whom? Kelm's eyes flicked very briefly to Clara Vane again. For information. From Miss Vane? From circumstances, he said smoothly. I pushed off the desk and took a step closer. Let's simplify. You were expecting a signal. You got it. You knew what it meant. Yes. And what did it mean? That a step had been taken. Which step? I asked. Kelm's smile faded a fraction. Mr. Goodwin, you're trying to turn a professional precaution into something sinister. Everything is sinister if it's arranged carefully enough, I said. Wolfe made a small approving noise. Kelm shifted his attention back to Wolfe. Let me save us time. You believe that I orchestrated a discussion to influence Dr. Vale, and then altered his lecture to reflect that influence. I believe that is possible, Wolfe said. And now you believe I'm coordinating signals from your office. I believe you recognized one, Wolfe said. Kelm inclined his head slightly. Very well. I recognized it. Clara Vane spoke quietly. Because you were told to expect it. Kelm turned to her. No, because I understand patterns. And you created them, she said. No, he said. I use them. Wolfe interjected. Mr. Kelm, who else knew that Miss Vane might come here today? No one, Kelmer said. Then why were you waiting for a call that would indicate she had? Kelm's fingers tapped once on the arm of the chair, the first sign of impatience. Because Miss Vane is predictable. Clara Vane's voice stayed level. Then you knew I would come here. I considered it likely. And you arranged to be informed when I did. I arranged to be informed when certain actions occurred, he said. Yours was one of several possibilities. I said, that's a lot of preparation for something you claim isn't a conspiracy. It's called prudence, he said. Wolfe's gaze hardened. Prudence does not require signals unless something is being coordinated. Kelm met his eyes. Everything is being coordinated, Mr. Wolfe. That is the nature of work at this level. Timing, access, information. These are not accidents. Nor are they innocent, Wolfe said. Nor are they crimes, Kelm returned. Silence again, but now it had a different texture. Not tension, alignment. The lines were clearer. Wolfe leaned back slightly. Let us consider the call. 11 seconds. No words. Recognition on your part. A signal. From whom? Kelm did not answer. Wolfe waited. I said, if it wasn't Miss Vane and it wasn't anyone in this house knowingly, then it leaves a smaller set. Kelm's eyes shifted to me. Such as? Such as someone who had access to this room without our knowledge, I said. That seems unlikely, Kelm said. Everything seems unlikely until it isn't, I said. Clara Vane's voice came in, softer now but sharper for it. Or someone who didn't need to enter the room. We all looked at her. Explain, Wolfe said. She turned to him. The call didn't have to be placed from inside the office to register as coming from this line. Saul, who had been standing quietly near the door, spoke for the first time. Extension, she nodded. If there's another instrument on the same line. In the hall, I said. Yes, she said. I felt something click into place. Not a solution, just a better-shaped problem. Saul said, Hall extension is in plain sight. And the door to this room was open, Clara Vane said. Anyone passing could have used it. I frowned. No one passed. Saul looked at me. You were at your desk. I would have seen. You were watching her, Saul said. That landed. I turned to Clara Vane. You think someone came in, used the hall phone, and left while I was focused on you? I think it's possible, she said. Kelm's smile returned faintly. Convenient. Wolfe ignored him. Who, Miss Vane? She hesitated. I don't know. Then we must know, Wolfe said. I said, Fritz was in the kitchen, Theodore upstairs. Saul wasn't here yet. No one else came to the door. Did anyone leave? Wolfe asked. I opened my mouth, then closed it. Because there had been a moment. Small. Forgettable. Or not. When I first opened the door, I said slowly, there was a man across the street. Walking, nothing unusual. He passed by as we came in. Saul's head tilted. Description. Average. Grey coat, hat. Didn't look twice. That's a description of half the city, Saul said. Yeah, I said. But he was there. Wolfe's eyes were on me. And? And I didn't think about him again. Until now, Wolfe said. Yes. Clara Vane spoke. If someone was watching from across the street, they could have seen me enter. And signaled Kelm, I said. Or been part of his arrangement, she said. Kelm let out a small breath. This is becoming imaginative. Wolfe's voice cut across him. No, it is becoming coherent. Kelm's eyes snapped back to Wolfe. Mr. Kelm, Wolfe said, you expected a signal. Oh, you received one. You recognized it. You claim it was part of a broader precaution, yet you cannot or will not say who arranged it. I have no obligation to discuss my professional methods, Kelm said. You have every obligation if those methods involve this house, Wolfe said. Kelm's voice cooled. I did not arrange anything involving your house. Then who did? Wolfe asked. Kelm did not answer, and that silence was louder than anything he had said. Clara Vane spoke again, very quietly. Julian, you didn't set this part up, did you? Kelm turned to her, and for the first time the composure cracked. Just a hairline fracture, but enough. No, he said. Wolfe's eyes gleamed. Then you are not in full control, he said. Kelm's jaw tightened. No, he said. And that changed everything, because now the arrangement had a second architect. And we hadn't met them yet. That admission hung in the room like a cracked bell still vibrating. Kelm had not meant to give it. You could see that in the way his fingers stilled, in the way his eyes sharpened not outward but inward, recalculating. A man like that doesn't lose control, he revises it. Wolfe did not hurry. Mr. Kelm, he said almost gently, you have arranged much. You have anticipated reactions, aligned influences, and managed access. Yet you now tell us there is an element you did not arrange. Kelm did not answer. Then let us be precise, Wolfe continued. You expected a signal. You received one. You recognized it, but you did not determine its origin. Kelm's voice was level again. I recognized its meaning. Which was? That Miss Vane had acted. Not that she was here, Wolfe said. No. Then the signal was not location-specific, Wolfe said. No. Yet it originated from this house. Yes. Wolfe leaned back. Curious. I said, not curious. Deliberate. Whoever set that up wanted you to know she'd made a move, but didn't care how you learned it. Kelm glanced at me. Or wanted me to think I knew how. That's cute, I said. But it doesn't change the fact that you're reacting to something you didn't fully control. Clara Vane spoke, her voice quieter now, but with a steadiness that had sharpened. Julian, who else was at that dinner? Kelm didn't look at her. You were there. Who else had access to the drafts, to the process? You know the list. I want you to say it, she said. Kelm's jaw tightened. Then he exhaled slightly. Stannard, Ormond, myself, you, the typist, Vale. Wolfe's eyes flickered. And Mrs. Stannard? Kelm hesitated. She was present at dinner. But not in the drafting, Wolfe said. No. Yet she participated in the conversation. Yes. Wolfe nodded once. And Mr. Ormond? Kelm's gaze shifted. He is influential. That is not an answer, Wolfe said. He was present, Kelm said. He contributed to the discussion. Did he have access to the drafts? Not directly. Indirectly. Kelm did not answer. That is a yes, Wolfe said. Clara Vane's eyes moved quickly. Felix wouldn't? He would, Kelm said, cutting her off. If he saw an advantage. Wolfe's gaze sharpened. What advantage? Kelm looked at him, and for the first time there was no polish in it. Only calculation stripped down to necessity. Positioning, he said. For what? For what comes after, Kelm said. Which is? Kelm didn't answer. I said, let me guess. And if Vale publicly shifts his stance, it creates cover for policy, for contracts, for decisions already in motion. Kelm's silence confirmed it. Clara Vane's voice was tight now. You were using him? No, Kelm said. We were aligning him. With something he didn't fully grasp, she said. With something he could accept, Kelm corrected. Wolfe's voice cut in. And Mr. Ormond? Kelm's eyes flicked again. He has interests. In what? Industry, infrastructure, government partnerships. Which benefit from reduced oversight, Wolfe said. Yes. Then he had motive, Wolfe said. Kelm didn't deny it. I said, and maybe he didn't trust you to handle it alone. Kelm looked at me sharply. Maybe he set up his own channel, I went on. His own signal, not to guide you, but to watch you. Clara Vane turned to me. You think he's been monitoring Julian? I think if I were Ormond, and I had that much riding on a single speech, I wouldn't leave it entirely in someone else's hands. Wolfe nodded slowly. Redundancy. Kelm's voice was flat. You're speculating. Yes, Wolfe said, but coherently. Kelm leaned forward. Mr. Wolfe, even if what you suggest were true, it changes nothing. The lecture stands. Dr. Vale will deliver it. There's no time to unravel every thread you imagine. Time is limited, Wolfe agreed, but not absent. Clara Vane stepped closer. Julian, does he know? Who? Kelm asked. Vale, she said. Does he know what's being done around him? Kelm held her gaze. Yes, he said. She shook her head. No, he knows what you've shown him, not what you've arranged. Kelm's expression tightened again. You underestimate him. And you overestimate your control, she said. Wolfe raised a hand. Enough. He looked at Kelm. Mr. Kelm, if Dr. Vale were to review the lecture tonight, alone, without influence, would he endorse it? Kelm hesitated. That was all. Wolfe saw it. So, Wolfe said softly, there is doubt. There is complexity, Kelm said. There is doubt, Wolfe repeated. Silence. Then Wolfe said, we will see Dr. Vale. Kelm's head snapped up. No. Yes, Wolfe said. He's not available. He will be, Wolfe said. You don't understand. I understand precisely, Wolfe said. You have accelerated the lecture to prevent interference. Therefore, interference must occur before morning. Kelm stood. That will not happen, he said. Wolfe did not move. It will. Kelm looked at him for a long moment. Then he did something unexpected, so he laughed. Not loudly, not mockingly, just once. You think you can walk into his house tonight and undo everything, he said. I think I can ask him a question, Wolfe said. And if he answers it, Kelm said. Then the arrangement fails, Wolfe said. Kelm's eyes sharpened. And if he doesn't? Then it was never his, Wolfe said. That landed clean. Kellum's expression shifted again, this time not to irritation, not to calculation, but to something closer to recognition. You're not trying to prove anything, he said slowly. No, Wolfe said. You're trying to force a moment. Yes, Kellum exhaled. And you think that moment will reveal the truth? I think it will reveal who believes it, Wolfe said. Silence again. Then Kellum nodded once. Very well, he said. Try. Clara Vane looked at him sharply. You're letting us? I'm not stopping you, he said. Why? Kellum's gaze moved to her, and for a second the polish dropped completely. Because if he answers your question, Kellum said, then I was wrong. And if he doesn't? She asked. Then you were, he said. Wolfe spoke. Archie. Yes. Prepare to leave. I grabbed my hat. The timeline had collapsed into a single line now. Tonight, one question, and whatever answer it brought would either break the arrangement or prove it had already succeeded. We left the brownstone at 7:15, with Saul driving and me in the front seat, Wolfe installed in the back like a verdict that had not yet been delivered. Clara Vane sat beside him, silent, hands folded, the composure back in place but drawn tighter now, as if the margin for error had narrowed to a line. New York at that hour was in transition, offices emptying, restaurants filling, the lights sliding down the sides of buildings in a way that made everything look briefly negotiable. I didn't feel like negotiating. No calls, I said over my shoulder. No interruptions. We walk in, we see him, we ask the question. Yes, Wolfe said. And if Kellum has warned them? He has, Wolfe said. That doesn't help. It clarifies, Wolfe said. Clara Vane spoke for the first time since we left. His housekeeper will try to stop us. She may, Wolfe said. She will, she corrected. Then we shall not be stopped, Wolfe said. I turned back. That's easy for you to say. You're not the one doing the walking. I'm the one doing the thinking, Wolfe said, which is more difficult. I let that pass. We reached Vale Street at 7:32. Saul pulled up half a house down. The place looked the same as it had earlier. Quiet, orderly, composed. If anything had changed inside, it wasn't showing itself to the sidewalk. Saul, I said, stay with the car. If we're not out in 20 minutes, come in. Saul nodded. I got out, went up the stoop, and rang. The housekeeper opened the door. Same face, same careful eyes. Yes, she said. Archie Goodwin, I said. We spoke earlier. Mr. Wolfe is here. That is not convenient, she said. It's not meant to be. Dr. Vale is not receiving visitors. He is now. She started to close the door. I put my foot in it. Lady, I said, we're not selling magazines. We need to see him. She looked past me, saw Wolfe on the step behind, and something shifted. Not fear, not deference, but recognition that this was no longer a casual refusal. Then I will ask, she said. Do that, I said. She closed the door. I turned. Wolfe had not moved. 10 seconds, I said. If she doesn't come back, we go in. She will come back, Wolfe said. She did. 15 seconds. He will see you, she said. Briefly. That will suffice, Wolfe said. We entered. The house felt different from the afternoon. Not disordered, but occupied. There were signs now, papers on a side table, a glass half full on a tray, a chair slightly out of alignment. Someone had been working and not tidying afterward. She led us to a study at the back. Adrian Vale was standing by a desk when we entered. He was taller than I had expected. Thinner, too, with a face that had been handsome once and still carried the structure of it. His hair was grayer than his photograph suggested, his eyes sharper, tired, yes, but not dim, and returned as we came in. Mr. Wolfe, he said, I was told you might call. His voice was steady, controlled, no confusion. Dr. Vale, Wolfe said, thank you for receiving us. Vale's gaze moved briefly to Clara Vane, then back. No surprise there. That told me something. This concerns my lecture, he said. Yes. I have been informed there are concerns. There are, Wolfe said. Vale gestured to the chairs. Sit. Wolfe did. I stayed standing. Vale remained where he was, one hand resting lightly on the desk. Be concise, he said. I have limited time. Wolfe inclined his head. Dr. Vale, I will ask you a single question. Your answer will determine whether I pursue this matter further. Vale's eyes narrowed slightly. Very well. Wolfe leaned forward a fraction. In your lecture, he said, so you conclude that independent oversight in certain public contracts has become inefficient and may justifiably be reduced. Yes, Vale said. Is that conclusion yours? Wolfe asked. Formed independently, or is it the result of influence exerted upon you during recent discussions? The room went still. Vale did not answer immediately. His gaze shifted, not to Wolfe, not to me, but to a point just beyond us, as if checking something internal, not external. Then he said, It is my conclusion. Clara Vane inhaled, sharp and quiet. Wolfe did not move. Formed independently? Wolfe pressed. Yes, without reservation. Vale hesitated. Just a fraction. Then, yes. Wolfe's eyes held him. Dr. Vale, he said, when did you arrive at this conclusion? Vale's hand on the desk tightened slightly. Over time, he said. Specifically, Wolfe said. Vale's gaze flicked just once to Clara Vane. After the dinner, he said. During the discussion? Wolfe asked. Yes. In the presence of Mr. Kelm, Mr. Stannard, Mr. Ormond, Mrs. Stannard, and Miss Vane. Yes. A remarkable conversation, Wolfe said. Vale's lips thinned. It was a productive one. Indeed, Wolfe said, so productive that each objection anticipated its answer. Vale's eyes sharpened. What are you suggesting? I am suggesting, Wolfe said, that the conversation was arranged to guide you to that conclusion. That is not correct, Vale said. Then you will have no difficulty answering a further question. Vale's expression hardened. Proceed. Wolfe's voice was very quiet now. In an earlier draft of your lecture, you wrote, the corruption of oversight begins when convenience acquires a moral vocabulary. Vale's eyes flickered, just once, then stilled. Yes, he said. That sentence does not appear in your final text, Wolfe said. No. Why was it removed? Vale opened his mouth, closed it. His hand lifted slightly from the desk, then settled again. Because, he said slowly, it no longer applied. To your conclusion? Wolfe asked. Yes. Or to your position before the conversation, Wolfe said. Vale's gaze snapped to him. That is a false distinction, he said. Is it? Wolfe asked. Silence. Then Wolfe leaned forward. Dr. Vale, he said, when you dictated the final version of your conclusion, did you hesitate? Vale blinked. Once. Did you consider alternatives? Wolfe asked. Vale did not answer. Clara Vane spoke, her voice tight. Adrian. Vale held up a hand. Did you? Wolfe asked again. Vale's eyes shifted again, that same inward movement. Then he said very quietly, No. Wolfe nodded. And before that moment, he said, had you expressed a different conclusion? Vale's jaw tightened. Yes, he said. To whom? Silence. Dr. Vale, Wolfe said, did you arrive at your conclusion, or were you brought to it? The question hung there. Vale's hand on the desk curled slightly. For a long second, nothing. Then, no, he said, not loudly, not firmly, but not clearly either. Clara Vane took a step forward. Adrian, he turned to her, and for the first time, the composure broke. Just a crack. "I don't know," he said. That was it. That was the moment, and Wolfe had it. The admission didn't echo. It didn't need to. It settled, final and unmistakable, ice in the space between all of us. Wolfe did not move. "Thank you, Dr. Vale," he said quietly. Vale straightened, as if he had been caught off balance and was now reclaiming himself by force. "That is not an answer," he said. "It is the only answer that matters," Wolfe replied. Vale's eyes hardened. "I said I don't know. That is not the same as—" "It is precisely the same as uncertainty," Wolfe said. "And uncertainty invalidates your conclusion as a statement of conviction." "That is absurd," Vale snapped. "Every conclusion contains uncertainty." "Not the kind you have just expressed," Wolfe said. Clara Vane stepped closer to the desk. "Adrian, listen to him. If you're not certain, you can't deliver that lecture as if you are." Vale turned to her, irritation flaring. "You presume—" "I know you," she said. "You don't hedge in private and declare in public. That's not you." Vale opened his mouth, then stopped. Wolfe said, "Dr. Vale, you are a man of reputation. That reputation rests not on being correct, but on being deliberate. If you now proceed with a conclusion you cannot affirm without hesitation, you will not merely err. You will misrepresent yourself." Vale's hand lifted from the desk and moved to his temple, pressing lightly, as if steadying something that had shifted. "That is not what is happening," he said, but the force had gone out of it. "Then say it again," Wolfe said. Vale looked at him. "Say that your conclusion is entirely your own," Wolfe continued, "formed independently, and that you have no doubt about it." Vale's lips parted. No sound came. Clara Vane's voice was softer now. "Adrian, you don't have to defend it. You just have to be honest." Vale's gaze moved between them, then away. Finally, he exhaled. "No," he said. There it was. Clear. Wolfe inclined his head once. "Then the lecture cannot be delivered as it stands," he said. Vale closed his eyes briefly, then opened them. "Sir, it will not be delivered as it stands." The words came with effort, but they held. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. "That's tomorrow morning taken care of," I said. "Not entirely," Wolfe said. Vale looked at him sharply. "What do you mean?" "I mean," Wolfe said, "that if the arrangement which produced this situation is not exposed, it will be attempted again, on you or on another." Vale's expression tightened. "You are suggesting manipulation." "I am stating it," Wolfe said. Vale's gaze shifted to Clara Vane. "You believe this?" "I know it," she said. Her Vale turned back to Wolfe. "And you can prove it?" Wolfe's lips moved slightly. "Proof is a matter of assembly. We have the pieces." "Then assemble them," Vale said. Wolfe did not answer immediately. Instead, he rose. That alone made the room change. He rarely leaves his chair for anything less than necessity. This qualified. "Dr. Vale," he said, "the conversation at Mr. Stannard's house was structured. Each participant advanced a portion of a single argument, in sequence, anticipating objections and supplying responses. That is not discussion. It is construction." Vale's eyes narrowed. "You were not present." "No," Wolfe said, "but Miss Vane was, and Mr. Kelm has confirmed enough." Vale's gaze sharpened. "Kelm?" "He acknowledged coordination," Wolfe said. "He denied total control." Vale went still. Explain." "There was a second architect," Wolfe said. "One who ensured that even Mr. Kelm's arrangement was observed and, if necessary, adjusted." "Who?" Vale demanded. Wolfe's eyes rested on him. "Mr. Felix Ormond." Vale's expression changed, not to surprise, but to recognition. "Ormond, he said. Yes, Wolfe said. He had motive, he had access, and he had reason not to trust that Mr. Kellum's influence alone would suffice. Clara Vane spoke. And the signal? Vale looked at her. What signal? Wolfe said. This morning when Miss Vane came to my house, a call was placed from my line to Mr. Kellum. 11 seconds. No words. A signal indicating that she had acted. Vale frowned. And you believe Ormond arranged this? I believe he arranged a parallel system of observation, Wolfe said. Not to assist Mr. Kellum, but to monitor him. Why? Vale asked. Because Mr. Ormond's interests depend not merely on the outcome, Wolfe said, but on control of the process. Vale's eyes darkened, and he believed Kellum might fail. Or deviate, Wolfe said. I added, so he set up his own line of sight, his own signals, redundancy. Vale absorbed that. And the note, Clara Vane said, the page delivered to me this morning. Wolfe nodded. A second pressure. Not to guide you, Miss Vane, but to test you, to see whether you would accept a simple explanation or seek a more complex one. Vale looked at her. And you came here? Yes, she said. Vale turned back to Wolfe. And you have done what, exactly? Wolfe's gaze was steady. I have interrupted the sequence. Silence. Then Vale gave a short, sharp breath. Yes, he said. You have. He moved away from the desk, pacing once, then stopping. If Ormond is behind this, he said, then he will not accept this outcome quietly. No, Wolfe said. He will not. And Kellum? Vale asked. He will adjust, Wolfe said. Vale looked at Clara Vane. And you? She met his gaze. I will stay. Vale nodded once. Then he turned back to Wolfe. What do you propose? Wolfe's answer was immediate. Tomorrow morning, he said, you will deliver a lecture. Vale's eyes narrowed. Not the one prepared. No, Wolfe said. A different one. What? Vale asked. The truth, Wolfe said. Vale held his gaze. And if I do that, he said slowly, what happens to them? Wolfe's eyes hardened. They will be present, he said. They will hear you, and they will know that you know. Vale considered that. Then, slowly, he nodded. Very well, he said. Wolfe inclined his head. We will attend, he said. Vale looked at him. You expect an invitation? No, Wolfe said. I expect a confrontation. I grinned. That's more our style anyway. Vale's lips twitched just slightly. Clara Vane exhaled, the tension in her shoulders easing for the first time since we had arrived. Wolfe turned toward the door. Archie, he said. Yes. We are done here. We left Vale standing in his study, no longer composed, no longer certain, but no longer arranged. Outside, the air had cooled. The city had settled into evening. I got into the car and glanced back at the house. Well, I said, that went cleaner than I expected. Wolfe settled into his seat. Do not be deceived, he said. Tomorrow will not be clean. Why not? Because, Wolfe said, those who arrange conversations rarely surrender the last word. I looked ahead, at the street, at the night, at whatever was waiting in the morning. Then we'll have to take it from them, I said. Wolfe closed his eyes. Yes, he said. The Tarrant Foundation Auditorium was already half full when we arrived the next morning, not with noise, yet, but with presence. The kind that gathers early, takes seats with intention, and watches the room as much as the stage. Trustees in dark suits, donors who wore influence like a second tie, a few journalists with notebooks ready but expressions carefully neutral. It was the sort of audience that didn't applaud easily and never forgot what it heard. Wolfe took his place without ceremony, occupying space the way he always did, completely. I stood slightly behind and to the side, with Clara Vane near the aisle. Saul and Fred had distributed themselves where they could see and be seen if necessary. Julian Kelm was already there. He stood near the front, speaking quietly with Edwin Stannard. Both men turned when we entered. Kelm's expression did not change. Stannard's did, but only for a fraction of a second, just enough to register that something had shifted beyond his control. Felix Ormond was seated 2 rows back, alone. He didn't look at us when we came in. That told me more than if he had. At 9:55, Adrian Vale entered from the side door. The room stilled, not dramatically, not theatrically, but with the kind of collective adjustment that signals attention. He walked to the podium without hesitation. If there was uncertainty left in him, it was not visible now. Or rather, it had been converted into something else. Deliberation. And he placed his notes on the podium. Then he looked up. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, "I had intended to present to you this morning a lecture concerning the evolving role of oversight in public contracts." A pause. "I will not do so." That landed. Not loudly, but cleanly. A ripple moved through the room. Not noise, not yet, but expectation recalibrating itself. Vale continued. "The document prepared for today contains conclusions I can no longer represent as my own with certainty. That fact alone disqualifies it." Now the ripple became sound. Low, contained, but unmistakable. Stannard stiffened. Kelm did not move. Ormond still did not look up. Vale's voice remained steady. "This is not a matter of disagreement. It is a matter of process. The conditions under which I arrived at those conclusions were not entirely my own." That was enough. The room sharpened. Journalists leaned forward. Pens moved. Vale did not rush. "I was influenced," he said. "Not by argument alone, but by arrangement, by the structure of discussion, by the sequence of ideas presented in such a way that conclusion appeared inevitable." He let that sit. Then, "That is not deliberation, that is direction." Now the room reacted. Not chaos, but pressure. Stannard leaned toward Kelm, speaking quickly under his breath. Kelm did not respond. Vale's gaze moved across the room, then settled, very briefly, on Felix Ormond. "And," he said, "I have reason to believe that this arrangement was not singular." That did it. Ormond looked up, for the first time. Wolfe did not move beside me, but I felt it, the shift, the final piece sliding into place. Vale continued. Redundancy was built into the process. Signals, observations, parallel controls, not merely to guide, but to ensure. His gaze stayed on Ormond now. "Mr. Ormond," he said, "if you would care to explain." Ormond stood, not abruptly, not defensively, deliberately. "Explain what?" he said. His voice carried easily. He didn't need the podium. "Efficiency," Ormond continued. "Coordination, ensuring that a necessary position is articulated clearly and without dilution." Vale held his gaze. "Ensuring that it appears to be mine." Ormond smiled. "Appearances are often indistinguishable from reality," he said. Wolfe stirred then. Not rising, not yet, but enough. I stepped forward. "Except when someone asks the right question," I said. A few heads turned. Ormond's eyes flicked to me, then to Wolfe. "And you are?" he asked. "Archie Goodwin," I said. "As assistant to the man who noticed your arrangement had too many moving parts." Ormond's smile didn't falter. "Then your employer is observant." "He's also annoyed," I said. "You used his house." That got a reaction. Small, but real. Ormond's gaze sharpened. "I beg your pardon." "The signal," I said. 11 seconds. No words. You set up a parallel line to monitor Kelm's operation. You didn't trust him to handle it alone." Ormond didn't answer. Wolfe did. "You arranged redundancy," he said, finally rising. "A secondary system of observation and confirmation. Not to assist, but to control. Ormond looked at him. "And you can prove that?" he asked. Wolfe's lips moved slightly. "No," he said. "I do not need to." A pause. Then Wolfe continued. "You have already acknowledged the principle. Efficiency, coordination, inevitability. You arranged a conversation to produce a conclusion. You arranged signals to confirm its progress. You arranged timing to prevent interference." Silence. "You did not account," Wolfe said, "for uncertainty." He gestured slightly toward Vale. "Nor for resistance." Ormond's smile faded. "Not completely, but enough." "And now?" Ormond asked. "Now," Wolfe said, "the arrangement is visible." Ormond considered that. Then he nodded once. "Very well," he said. He turned. Not to Wolfe, not to Vale, but to the room. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, "you have just witnessed the inefficiency of independent oversight." A few people shifted. He continued. "A process interrupted, a conclusion delayed, a system that cannot produce results without being derailed by uncertainty." He smiled again. "And yet," he said, "here we are." Wolfe said, "Yes." Ormond turned back to him. "And yet," Wolfe repeated, "you have failed." Ormond's eyes narrowed slightly. "Have I?" he asked. "Yes," Wolfe said, "because your objective was not merely to produce a conclusion, it was to have it accepted without question." A pause. "That has not occurred." Silence. Then Ormond inclined his head. "Perhaps not today," he said. He sat. And just like that, it was over. Not with a crash, not with a confession, but with exposure. The room did the rest. Voices rose. Questions followed. The structure Ormond had built didn't collapse. It dissolved, because it could no longer pretend to be natural. Vale stepped back from the podium, no longer the instrument, fully himself again. Clara Vane stood beside me, quiet. "You were right," she said. "No," I said. "Wolfe was?" She glanced at him. "He usually is," she said. Back at the brownstone, dinner was served precisely on time. Fritz had recovered his dignity, which meant the food was excellent, and the atmosphere restored to something approaching civilized. Wolfe ate well. That's always the final confirmation. Afterward, in the office, he poured beer and settled into his chair. "Well," I said, "no arrests, no handcuffs, no dramatic confessions." "Phooey," Wolfe said. "Those are vulgar." "Still," I said, "Ormond walks away." "No," Wolfe said. "He adjusts. That is not the same." "And Kellum?" "He will find another employer," Wolfe said. "One more suited to his talents." "And Vale?" "He will think," Wolfe said, "which is all one can ask." I took a sip of beer. "And Clara Vane?" Wolfe's eyes closed briefly. "She will be cautious," he said, "and therefore more dangerous." I grinned. Good," I said. "I like my clients that way." Wolfe opened his eyes. "Archie," he said, "what have you learned?" I considered. "That a conversation can be a weapon," I said, "if it's arranged right." Wolfe nodded. "And?" he prompted. "That perfection is suspicious?" I said. Wolfe's lips moved, almost a smile. "Yes," he said. "When a conversation goes too perfectly, it is no longer a conversation." He lifted his glass. "It is an instrument." I raised mine. "And instruments," I said, "can be taken apart." Wolfe drank. The brownstone settled. And for once, the silence meant exactly what it should.